During the lockdown period of the Shanghai pandemic, all of us saw a video that spread widely, the beating of two women in a Tangshan barbecue shop, which was witnessed by people all over the country. Everyone who saw the video was outraged, weren't they? It was unbearable to watch. So a middle school classmate of mine from Shanghai, we were all in lockdown at home, he called me. He asked if I had seen the video. I said I had seen it. He said if I hadn't, he would have sent it to me. I told him I had already watched it, and then he began to express his anger over the phone. He said, "Look at what kind of people they are simply beasts." I said, "Slow down, you're praising them. They are worse than beasts. Do animals have a sense of good or evil? Are they neither good nor evil? You wouldn't say that a lion eating a gazelle is an act of evil, right? No, that's just the food chain in nature. The lion is at the top of the food chain, and the gazelle is at the bottom. So, when the predator consumes the prey, it's a natural occurrence, neither good nor evil. If you were to travel to Africa, you might witness a surprising scene, lions and gazelles walking together. You'd wonder why the lion doesn't just eat the gazelle. The explanation is simple: at that moment, the lion is full. When the lion is satiated, it might as well take a walk with the gazelle. But if a human is full, does that solve all problems? No, being full doesn't solve anything for humans, they still seek other amusements. This is what makes us human. Therefore, humans need to be taught, which is what the third phrase of the doctrine of the mean refers to. The cultivation of human nature is called teaching. We all know about the incident at Fudan University's medical school, where a student put poison in the water of his classmate, resulting in a tragedy for both families. The student who poisoned the water was actually a top student at Fudan's medical school, and there was another incident at the mathematics department. When it first happened at the medical school, after the poisoned water was drunk and the classmate died, the perpetrator was, of course, arrested. I was extremely shocked when I heard the news. I thought there must have been some deep hatred between the two classmates, but there wasn't. They simply had different personalities and some friction between them. I wondered, why would anyone go so far as to cause another's death? Later, the student who poisoned the water was detained, and before he was formally sentenced and arrested, he had been in the detention center for 3 months. A host from the Central Television came to Shanghai to interview this student in the detention center. He asked the student what he had been doing during the 3 months in detention. The student replied that he had been reading books, and in those 3 months, he had read various books, including philosophy, history, and literature, which he had never read before. He said that now he understood that being human also means his nature needs to be cultivated. Those were his exact words. Unfortunately, he is now deceased. I bring up this example to illustrate a point: people are not like cats and dogs. You know, humans can deviate from the way. Confucianism talks about the way, and of course, Taoism does as well. The first sentence of the Tao Te Ching of Taoism is, "You could talk about the way, but you really could not." When I was an undergraduate, of course, we had to read the original texts of ancient Chinese philosophy, right? So, when reading Laozi's Tao Te Ching, the first sentence I read was like a cold shower. What does it mean? One can speak about the way, but you really cannot. Once spoken, it may not be the way. In other words, what is Laozi telling us? The way cannot be spoken of. I was thinking to myself, if the way cannot be spoken of, then why did Laozi still write the 5,000 words in his book? Isn't that contradictory? At that time, I was utterly puzzled and didn't understand. It was only later that I gradually came to understand and finally realized that Laozi was not contradicting himself. The 5,000 words of Laozi's Tao Te Ching never directly tell us what the way is. Instead, it always tells us what the way is not. By telling us what the way is not, it lets us understand the way. That is Tao Te Ching. When we want to talk about something that cannot be directly spoken of, it is almost sacred. What is the way? We Chinese understand the way of heaven to be the highest authority, governing all things in the world. Do we believe in such a supreme ruler? The first time I came to Shenzhen was in 1987 because a classmate from my undergraduate days had gone to Shenzhen to start a business after graduation. He had opened a very successful company. He was not just a classmate but also a roommate, a bunkmate, with an exceptionally close relationship. Then he invited me to Shenzhen to see his company, and I gladly accepted. I was eager to see Shenzhen, the nationally renowned special economic zone. I wanted to see what Shenzhen was like. The streets of Shenzhen were bustling with activity. Do we still remember the construction of the China Trade Building? At that time, the building speed was 1 floor every 3 days, which was hailed as the Shenzhen speed. Then I saw a large sign on the street with 2 lines, "Time is money, efficiency is life." I was startled when I saw it. At that time, this phrase was accepted by most people in the country. It was a special historical period. We were moving from a planned economy to a market economy with reforms. We were eager to shake off poverty, weren't we? Our long-standing poverty, so this is understandable. But why was I startled? Because I study philosophy. Those who study philosophy inevitably have to ponder the meaning of life, where the value of time lies. Because life is short, you must think about this issue if you study philosophy. Where does the value of time lie, and where is the meaning of life? I hadn't figured it out, and there was the answer. What is the value of time? Money, right, and what is the meaning of life? Efficiency. I wondered what I was still studying philosophy for. Forgive my frankness, but I was really startled at the time, and after returning, I thought about whether I should continue to study philosophy. What have we lost in the aftermath of more than 30 years of reform and opening up? As I pondered this question, I arrived at a conclusion. There are 2 significant absences, 2 things that we have lost. The first is the absence of reverence for the way of heaven. We have forgotten to honor and revere its guiding principles. The second absence is the lack of respect for the human mind. Both forms of respect have vanished from our lives. In our relentless pursuit of escaping poverty and attaining wealth, we have become convinced that through sheer willpower and rational planning, we can conquer anything and possess unlimited power. In doing so, we have forgotten to acknowledge the supreme authority of the way of heaven and have ceased to revere it. Additionally, we have started treating people merely as tools, including treating ourselves as tools. It is crucial to recognize that every individual possesses a heart, regardless of their social status. Even if someone occupies the lowest rung of society, it is essential to respect their inner world, their human mind. We should never reduce them to mere tools, just as we should not treat ourselves in such a manner. Unfortunately, respect in both of these cases has been lost. Do we believe there is a supreme sovereign in this world? What have we Chinese called this supreme sovereign? The way of heaven. Westerners, being from religious nations, call their supreme sovereign God in Christianity, and Allah in the Islamic world. Our Chinese nation is not a religious nation, therefore, we do not personify or deify this sovereign. The way of heaven is the supreme sovereign. We use the term Tao, but we cannot talk about it directly, we can only discuss what it is not. To explain this, the Tao that can be told is not the Tao, this phrase says it all. Regarding the supreme sovereign of the world, you can't directly state what it is, so Laozi didn't. There's no way to say what it is, but it still needs to be expressed. If we can explain something directly, this method of explanation is called straightforward exposition. However, for Tao, the sovereign of the world, it's impossible to say directly what it is. We can only understand it by stating what it is not. This method is a reverse explanation. By stating what it is not, we come to understand what it is. This is the only way to philosophically comprehend the way of heaven. Both Taoism and Confucianism are parts of Chinese philosophy, and they share a common starting point, the harmony of heaven and man. If both advocate for this unity, why are there distinctions between Confucianism and Taoism? It's because of their different emphasis. Confucianism focuses on the man, believing that humans can promote Tao and uphold the way of heaven through their lives. Taoism, on the other hand, focuses on heaven, asserting that all human happiness is inborn. It has already been passed down from heaven, from the supreme sovereign of the way of heaven. Human troubles and sorrows are self-inflicted. Once you grasp this fundamental standpoint, you will undoubtedly understand that Taoist teachings are meant to guide us in practicing subtraction. What do we subtract? We eliminate those self-inflicted factors. Thus, in Laozi's Tao Te Ching, there is a phrase we should recite: in the pursuit of knowledge, one works to increase one's knowledge base daily. In the pursuit of Tao, one works to lessen that daily. So, if you are not pursuing knowledge but the Tao, what does it mean to pursue the Tao? Pursuing here means practicing, not accumulating knowledge. Practicing the Tao means living your life in accordance with the way of heaven. The key is decreasing daily. To eliminate self-manufactured misguided thoughts, until you reach the state of non-action, or Wu Wei. In this state, all actions are possible. This statement, action through non-action, one needs to go to great pains to share it with foreigners. It is hard to explain. They would ask, "What do you mean?" You translate it into a European language, and they would be perplexed. So you mean to say doing nothing is equivalent to doing everything? How does that make any sense? Our explanation to them can only go so far. What we mean by non-action is not about doing nothing, but about doing things without a human imposition. They might be even more confused. Aren't all things done by humans? How can it not be human imposed? But that's as far as we can explain to them. Pretense consists of two Chinese characters, right? Combined, it forms another character, which has the same sound, which is Wei, meaning artificial or contrived. Laozi advocates for Wu Wei, which is a rejection of what? Wei, the artificiality, the contrived. Of course, it is necessary to clarify that here Wei does not carry the moral implication of hypocrisy or deceitfulness, which would be its meaning in a moral context. All the words in Laozi's Tao Te Ching are unrelated to morality. For instance, when you come across the word sage in the Tao Te Ching, it doesn't refer to a saintly person in the Confucian sense, one who possesses a saintly moral quality or realm. Taoism does not discuss good and evil. So what does saint refer to here? It refers to a person who governs a country. This is the saint mentioned in the Tao Te Ching. Do not attach a moral implication to it, saying that a saint is someone with a lofty moral realm. That's not the intended meaning. A saint here is simply someone who governs. Also, the character for good often appears in the Tao Te Ching, and this good is not the moral dichotomy of good versus evil. It refers to doing things well, to skillfulness. Therefore, I want to clarify that Laozi's opposition to Wei is not about morality but rather about what? The opposition to artificial human actions, to people acting purely based on their own personal factors. When people act based on their own personal factors, what are these factors? First, they have a personal agenda to achieve. Second, they learn methods and accumulate means to achieve their goal through experience. In the process, knowledge is formed and adhered to in order to reach the goal. This is what is meant by artificiality. So what should we do? Laozi knows it's hard for us to comprehend the Tao, so he finds a way to talk to us, telling us a lot about what the Tao is not. This is explanation by negation, right? Why does he say the Tao is not A, not B, not C, not D? It's to teach us subtraction. Why say no, this isn't the Tao, that isn't the Tao? This is crucial. Why? In our life and work, we might have an experience that seems incredibly precious to us because it has brought us tremendous success. You then regard this particular experience as invaluable and intend to adhere to it for life. Laozi wants to tell us that this is not the Tao, it's just an experience. It's not the Tao. An experience that once brought you great success could well be the same experience that leads to a huge failure in the future. Hence, he tells us the Tao is not A, not B, not C, not D, to avoid the mistake of elevating something that is merely experiential knowledge to the level of the Tao. In our misguided life's journey, he tries to remind us, so he says a lot of obfuscating things to teach us subtraction. Subtraction is not natural, it has to be taught. As soon as we come into this world, we are inevitably thrown into a civilization, right? We grow up in this civilization, constantly doing addition, adding experience, adding knowledge. This is called growth. Since we're used to addition, we don't know how to subtract. That's how Taoism comes along. Its main task is to teach us subtraction, and to do so very thoroughly, removing elements derived from experience, from knowledge, and even from personal desires, aspirations, and goals. When you act in this state or realm, it's called Wu Wei, and what is the effect? Wu Wei. How is that? Because the Tao is inherently Wu Wei. When you've completely removed self-derived factors, everything you do naturally aligns with the Tao. What is the effect of aligning with the way of heaven in our actions? It is Wu Wei. The concept of Wu Wei is central to Taoist philosophy, emphasizing the idea of accomplishing things without unnecessary action. However, it is easier said than done. I hope I have made a small contribution by sparking your interest in studying, reading, and learning about Taoist works during your leisure time. I have opened the door for you to delve into this subject. What is the purpose of reading Laozi? What is the purpose of reading Zhuangzi? The purpose is singular: to learn the art of subtraction, to master the practice of letting go. If you can achieve this effect, you will truly gain something valuable. But it is undoubtedly challenging.